Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Brittany Dufilly. I'm the Educational and Outreach Coordinator here at Verteks. Today we have Mike Dufilly. He's going to be presenting some end user tips and tricks. We also have Robert Hipke, which I know most of you guys know. He's the one that is contacting you about our webinars. Mike is going to be talking about kind of a little bit of the end user stuff, and then kind of, we're getting into the holiday season, so a lot of you are have questions about setting your voicemails properly and things we need to prepare for the end of the year. So with that, Mike, I'm going to give it all to you.
Thanks, Brittany. Good afternoon, everyone. Like Brittany was saying, as we're coming into the holiday season here, definitely getting a lot more questions about how to set schedules and what people can do to get their systems ready for the holidays, make sure that everything's ready to go there. And then since this is an end user training, I wanted to take a few minutes and show you guys what you can do with the Connect client from a user perspective to get yourself set up for the holidays. Obviously, a lot of people have vacation coming up. And if you're going to be away from your desk, maybe you want to be in a situation where you're not going to be checking your voicemails and want to record a greeting, or maybe we're going to do something more complicated and set up some kind of call forwarding to someone who's going to be covering for you, or even some more advanced stuff. So that's what I wanted to cover in the training today. I do have our Connect client up here. In case you might have not seen kind of some of the latest builds of the software, the Connect client does have a very different look and feel here. Everything's pretty much in the same spot. It's just blue now, obviously rebranded for Mitel completely. So here in the Connect client, when we're usually talking about getting ourselves set up for vacation or something like that, we're going to be looking at our availability states. And we can get access to those through the client, and normally how we change them. If we just click on myself here, so right next to my name, this little MD icon, in this version of the client, that's going to pop up my availability states here. And of course, we have a total of 6 to choose from, really 5 that can affect if we're out of the office or not taking calls. So our normal available mode if we're at our desk and can take a call, and then 5 other modes or states here that we can use to help communicate our availability to other users on the phone system, but also each of these change the way our voicemail system reacts. So some of the things we can do here. Let's talk about this guy on vacation, since this might be the one that a lot of people are hoping to think about this time of year. These can all be programmed to do different things, but kind of out of the box, if you've never changed any of these settings, basically all of these except for available are going to immediately forward a call to your voicemail box if you're in any of these other states. So if I put myself into on vacation here, immediately calls are just going to be coming to my voicemail. Now, if I haven't recorded a custom greeting for this voicemail box, the system will use my recorded name and create sort of a canned voicemail announcement for me. That'll say something like, Mike is on vacation and will not be checking messages. Please leave a voicemail after the tone, and still allow them to leave a voicemail. Now, one of the most common things we'll want to do with these different availability states is kind of right off the bat, record a custom greeting. We can have a different voicemail greeting recorded for each one of these states, and the system will save them kind of against that state. So if you're in that state in the future, it'll change to use the recording that you had previously set up for that particular availability state. To get to those, we need to go to settings, which I can find here at the bottom. And then all the settings that we can control about the availability states all live in the call routing section of the settings here. This is where we can go to edit any of these states to change what they do, or do things like record a new greeting. This is one way to do that. There are other alternative ways you can do it, but we'll go through this one here now. So if I'm editing the settings here, the first thing I'll want to note is right up top here, there's a drop down that's asking me which one of these states I want to edit. In this case, I'm going to be changing my vacation one here. So I'm going to change this to vacation. And then on the bottom part of the screen here, it's going to tell me the way that this vacation state is currently configured. Some of these can be a little confusing if you haven't looked at these before, but want to take you through each of these here step by step so you see what these settings do. So the first one I'll note here for vacation, one thing that tends to confuse people is it says here this phone will simultaneously ring my mobile client, but just under that it says incoming calls are immediately routed to voicemail. So it's one thing to note here, this first button is always going to tell you what would happen if the simul ring were turned on for this mode. It doesn't mean it is on, it's just telling you where it would go. Really, the second button here is going to tell you where calls are going. And we can see here, incoming calls are immediately routed to voicemail, which is what we want. Now, under that, the next one says voicemail greeting recorded with the record button. This is where I can change the recording associated with my vacation state here. Now, if I hit this record button, it's going to give me a little interface here where I can record my greeting or listen to the one that I already have recorded if I've already got one there. One thing I always recommend when you're recording a greeting, especially if you trigger it through your PC, you'll notice in the controls here, I've got a play button here on the left, and then way over on the right, I've got two small buttons here. This controls whether or not I'm going to be making the recording from my PC speakers and microphone, which is this option here on the left, or through my phone, which is the option on the right. I always recommend if you're doing it at your desk and you have a desk phone available, go ahead and choose the phone option. It just has a tendency to sound better than a headset does a lot of the time. But if you just have a PC and mic on your computer and you're recording it that way, that's a totally valid way to make that recording. You'll just choose the kind of speaker icon here. Now, if I were to hit record new greeting, it would, give me a beep and let me record that greeting. I also always recommend kind of jotting down what you want that to say in writing first. If you try to obviously make those recordings right off the top of your head, sometimes it's easy to get flabbergasted in the middle of it. So having a little script to work from always helps, especially if it's something a little bit longer. And then once you've recorded that greeting, you can play it back. Once you think it sounds great, you can hit either next or save here. I'm just going to go ahead and hit save. And then that's going to take me right back to the main call routing screen here. And now I've got a custom recording set up for that vacation mode. Now, a couple extra things we can do here, not a lot of people know about. The button underneath my recording here, this one and the one underneath it is going to take me to the same screen here. What this gives me the ability to do is actually make it so that people will hear my voicemail greeting, but actually won't be able to leave a message. So it kind of turns off your mailbox. And especially for users who are going to be on vacation for maybe an extended period, or if you're going to have extremely limited access to your voicemail, maybe you would prefer that people get that message that you're going to be out, but not be able to actually leave a message for you, so you don't have to worry about a whole bunch of messages building up while you're gone. And with this option, we can just say, no, callers will not be able to leave a voicemail. And with that selected, now they're still going to hear whatever greeting I have recorded, but they're not going to be given the option to leave a message. Now there's an additional setting on this page here, right under this radio button. It says if callers press 0 while listening to your greeting, forward calls to wherever. And this is a really great option to use if you've got someone who's perhaps going to be covering for you. Maybe you want to, in your recording, you can say something like, to reach extension 1234, Mary Sue, who's going to be covering for me, press 0 now. And you can record that right to your greeting. And you can go ahead and set this forward calls to Mary Sue's extension. And then that's going to override the default 0 for the operator behavior that you would see there if you didn't have anything programmed. And that's going to allow someone to 0 out of your mailbox and get to someone that you can set up for that coverage specifically. And so those are all the major options here. One other common request is, okay, well, got something set up here for vacation. I've got it where my voicemail box is turned off. I've got coverage set up for 0. I'm going to be gone for like 3 weeks. What if I want to have some kind of exception, or what if somebody really needs to get a hold of me or somehow get through? This is where the options in the power routing section up here can start to come in very handy. Power routing's a unique sort of powerful feature we can set up. It's basically, you can think of it as rules for phone calls. And we can set up a whole bunch of different kinds of rules here to do different things. For instance, a really popular one might be to screen your calls, right? So I just want to screen unknown callers. So I can create a rule for that. I can say when the number matches, which is this field here, and I've got a drop down here where this number match can be a number of different things. So it can be actually a specific number, which I can type in. I can say it's either any internal or external number, any internal or external number starting with a particular number, or in this case, I can say if the number is private, or if the number is out of area or unknown. So if I've got no caller ID, then I can say forward call either straight to your voicemail, or another option might be to play a certain ringtone. If we've got a 400 series phone, we can adjust the ringtones here. Or I can send it to some other extension on the system. So for a situation like this, usually a pretty common rule would be to set this up and send these callers straight to voicemail if they got no caller ID. Additionally, we can use these to set up bypasses for certain kinds of vacation or availability programming. So maybe I've got a situation where, you know, I want most people to not be able to call this number and get through, but maybe I'm waiting on a really important call from a particular guy. I really need to talk to him. He promised he's going to call kind of 2 days into vacation. Gosh, how can I get this guy through? So we can set up a bypass rule where we can say for a particular number match, right? So if I know the number he's going to be calling from, I can put it in there. And then we could say, if your availability is on vacation, so this isn't going to be a rule that runs all the time, right? We can just set this up so that this only takes effect if you're in a vacation mode. Then maybe I'll forward them to my cell phone, right? And this way I don't have to give out my personal cell phone number maybe, and I still give a important caller a way to reach me, bypassing kind of the blocks I've put in place for everyone else. There we go. You'll note here that these do take effect before your availability routing. So anything that you put in here is going to override something that you have programmed here for any of your states. And that mobile option, I think most people won't see that there. Now, we do, of course, have a wizard option here as well. So if you want to be taken kind of in a guided way through each of these pages, you can just go here, choose vacation, hit start wizard. And basically this is going to take you through each of these pages, page by page. You'll see here it starts again with that somewhat confusing simultaneous ring option. But then on the next page, we can say always go to voicemail here. And this will just take you through page by page. There are a few options that are good to know about for coverage that don't live here in this section. One of them here, I'll point out, is actually on the notifications page in settings. And this is where we can enable or disable email notifications about incoming voicemails. So obviously, if I'm receiving a voicemail message, maybe I'm not going to be checking those, you know, by logging into the system, but I'd like to make sure I get an email with a copy of that I can listen to. And you can enable that for yourself right here from the client under notifications, and then voicemail, a checkbox right here to send email notifications about voicemails to your email address, and then an option here to attach it as a WAV file. And usually if you have the WAV file attached in an email, you'll be able to listen to that from your cell phone, another computer if you're logging in to check your email that way. All that will be available for you. One additional setting we can point out here for the very brave. We do occasionally get questions from time to time about Outlook integration. We used to, a few versions ago, have an Outlook integration that worked through an Outlook plugin. That kind of got really hampered with changes Microsoft made to Outlook, where we couldn't use the same plugin we had used in the past. And the functionality of this kind of got whittled down. But just to mention it, show people how it works now, there is still a calendar integration inside of the client where we can integrate with the Outlook calendar. The problem really for most people currently is that the way it behaves now is fixed. So we can't customize it to behave any differently than kind of the way it describes it here. So basically, if you do turn this on, if Outlook shows you in a booked meeting or an appointment, it will automatically switch your availability to in a meeting. And then if that appointment shows you as out of the office, it'll automatically switch it to out of the office. And your other modes would be unaffected. For some people, this is okay, but most people find when they turn that on, basically anytime you have any kind of Outlook appointment set up, it's going to be changing the state of your phone. And obviously, for most people, not every Outlook appointment represents some kind of real meeting or appointment that you may want to change your phone state for. So we do, again, have that option available. It just operates in this much more fixed mode than it used to. One very advanced option we can talk about here that almost no one takes advantage of, mostly because it doesn't do something super useful, is the voicemail escalation profile option. This is something that we'll commonly use at a system-wide level to do some interesting things with voicemail notifications, but most users don't know that you do have this feature available to use with your personal voicemail. And what a voicemail escalation profile does is it provides a staged progressive notification system for voicemail messages that are left in a mailbox. And this is something we'd set up for like a night mailbox, or if you call us after hours and leave a message in our hard down mailbox, it's taking advantage of this escalation profile feature to send messages out to us, to the people who are on call, letting you know. So you can think, well, how could that be super useful to me as an individual? One of the other features that it has is the ability to call you and let you know that you have a voicemail. So in a situation where you have a mailbox that might need to be set up to handle something urgent, maybe while people are out of the office, there's going to be some limited coverage. You might want to set up a mailbox to handle an emergency call that might come in a situation where maybe somebody's not staying quite as late. You can use an escalation profile to alert someone who's looking for those messages that the message is there. And you can set these up right from in the client. You'll notice there's a drop down here to enable it for a particular availability state, but there aren't going to be any here until I actually create some. And we actually create those here in the voicemail section of the settings. And there's a tab up here for escalation. And this is where we can create an escalation profile, which is basically just going to be a notification list, is the best way to think about it. You can either notify for an unheard message or for each new message. I think each new message is probably the more popular option for something using this feature. Then if I click add new profile here, this is going to create basically a profile name, right? You could say something like cell phone. And it'll give you the option to receive either an email notification or a phone notification. And for email notification, a lot of times we'll just set that up out of notifications here, so you can get your personal copy of that. But if I wanted to send it to an additional email address, this is a good way to do it. Also, the phone notification. So this is great for urgent voicemails. So we have an option to notify for urgent only, where I can actually enter my, for instance, cell phone number here. And when a new message gets left in a mailbox with this escalation profile attached, the system will actually place an outbound call to the number we have configured here, letting you know that there's a message there. So for really urgent workflows where perhaps maybe an email isn't going to be urgent enough, if it's something that's really critical and time sensitive, you can set up an escalation profile to send a phone notification, a live voice phone call to someone to let them know there's a voicemail message waiting. And the person who receives that call has the option to check that message or right out of that call. So in this case, I'm creating this profile here, right? So now I've got that phone notification. And now I can go back with that set up and say, okay, for vacation, I'm going to attach this cell phone escalation profile, right? Now, in this particular case, one other thing to think about in these kinds of situations are potentially some features that might be working against each other. In this case, for my vacation state, I'm not allowing anyone to leave a voicemail, but I have this escalation profile that will alert me if I get any urgent voicemails. It's something to be cognizant of and make sure that, you know, if I want to use this feature, I have to be allowing people to leave voicemails. But now, with this setup, people will be able to leave a voicemail for me, and any that are marked urgent, I'll receive a actual call from the system to let me know that there's a voicemail that I need to listen to. So really, we've got a lot of building blocks. You can kind of put these Lego pieces together to, you know, create the kind of availability or lack thereof you want when you're going to be away from the system. Some other options you might be able to take care of, obviously, or take advantage of if you're away. If you have a Edge gateway installed on your system, I know a lot of folks do, and it's set up to allow the client to function outside of your business, then you'll just be able to take, you know, a laptop to a hotel, to the beach. If you've got the Connect client installed, it can be configured to connect to your system and allow you to place and receive calls using the cell phone feature, just like you're there on the network. So that can be a popular option for mobility. A lot of folks took advantage of that during COVID. Of course, we do also have the option of sending your calls straight to an external number, through a cell phone, and that can be useful in a situation where, you know, I might have my cell phone with me, I might have a laptop with a VPN, but I don't want to use a soft phone, or I don't think that's not a good option because my bandwidth is limited or it's not a good connection. You can always choose to use the external number feature. That's going to route calls through your cell phone, the audio, but you'll still be able to use the client to control the call through the PBX. So you can still send it to your voicemail, you can still transfer it to another extension. You'll be able to place calls to internal extensions or external parties just by double clicking on them, and it'll actually place that call through your cell phone, but without exposing your cell phone number to the party you're calling. So it can be a good way to stay in touch, but not necessarily sacrifice some of your privacy. Finally, of course, if you're in a situation with your system where you have things like auto attendance, major system level wide features that you need to adjust the schedule and settings for those outside of the scope of this call, but we definitely want to give everyone any kind of help or advice they need in getting that set up. So definitely, please feel free to reach out to us at Verteks if you have any questions about that or need help getting any schedules changed on your own system. But Of course, those were the kind of rundown of the availability features. We're wrapping up a little bit early, but again, it's getting to be that time of year. Can open it up to any questions if anyone has anything in particular they wanted to talk about. Looks like we have a few more people on than usual, so definitely thank you guys for attending. And if you do have any questions, we're happy to field those now, either about this or about something else.
Thank you, Mike. And we did do a couple of months ago. We did a complete walkthrough of kind of what the new features are on the new client that you can check out on our YouTube channel as well. It went very in depth to all of the new features plus some of the technicalities that are in the new Connect client. So, thank you, Mike.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Bye bye.